Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn about the seventh chapter. Chapter name is the soil. Here let's recall what are the different constituents of the soil. From where do you the abiotic factors become available for the soil formation? On which factors does the variety in the soil depend? That means what are the different constituents of the soil? What is the here we are answering this question above. You must have gathered some information about the soil and realized some its characteristic. Let us consider the soil in more details. The parent rock, the climate of the region, the biotic material, the slope of the land, the time are the factor influenced the soil formation. That means the parent rock, the climatic of the region and the biotic material and slope of the land. This is factor which is dependent on the these factors which is responsible for the soil formations. Factors necessary for the soil formation: first is the parent rock, second is the regional climate, third is the biotic material, and fourth is the time. Then first is the parents rock. Remember that the parent rock region is important factor in the soil formation. Depending on the hardness of the rock and the climate of the region, the rocks get weathered. The rocks turn into the powdery material, which further turn into the earth material. For example, the basalt rock of the Deccan Plateaus in Maharashtra turn into the black soil, and after the weathering, this soil is an referred to as regular soils. Rocks like granite or gneous south in India give rise to red soil. That means the first factor which is necessary for the soil formation. First is the parent rocks. That means in parent rocks the region is an important factor for this soil formation. That means this is a parent rock is the important factors for the soil formation depending on the hardness of the rock. That means this is the dependent of the parent rock is the hardness or hard and climate of the region. The rocks get weathered, and because of the climate this rocks turn the rocks gets withered म्हणजे to distribute in a to break down in a small particle, and these rocks turn into the powdery material which further into earthy material. That means this is rock turn into the powdery material and which further turn into the earthy materials. For example, the basalt rock of the Deccan Plateaus in Maharashtra. That means here given the one of the example, the basalt rock of the Deccan Plateau in Maharashtra turn into the soil after the weatherings. That means here given the example parents rock or basalt rocks, which is one of the example of the parents rock which is converted into. This soil is also referred as a regular soils. That means this is also known as the regular soils, and rocks like granite or gneiss is in South India give the rise to red soils. Second factor which is necessary for the soil formation is the regional climate. This is also an important factor influencing soil formation. Weathering of the rock is the first step in the process of soil formation. This process of weathering dependent on climate of the region. The climate decided the intensity of weathering. That is why one and the same type of rocks give rise to the different type of soil. When the rocks is exposed to different climate, in the dry climate of Deccan Plateaus, weathering of the basalt leads to the formation of black soils, whereas in the humid climate of the western Sahyadris, in the leaching of the same basalt rocks leads to the formation of laterite soils. That means the regional climate is so important for the soil formation. This is also an important factor which is influencing soil formation, that means which is so important for the soil formation. Weathering of the rocks is the first step in the weathering of the rocks is the first step of the soil formation. The process of weathering dependent on the climate. You know the weathering is dependent on the climate. म्हणजे जसं क्लायमेट असेल तसं ते काय होतं, वेदरिंग होतं. Climate decided intensity of weathering, and which is the climate decide the इंटेन्सिटी ऑफ वेदरिंग. तो कशा पद्धतीनं वेदरिंग होतो ते कशावरती डिपेंडंट असतं, क्लायमेटवरती. दॅट इज वाय वन अँड सेम टाईप ऑफ रॉक्स गिव्ह राईज इन डिफरंट type of soil when rocks is exposed to different climate. That means the climate is so important for the weathering. In the dry climate, Deccan Plateau's weathering basalt leads to formation black soil. That means in the climate of the Deccan Plateau, dry climate, and because of this the basalt leads to the formation of black soil or the regur soils. And the humid climates of the western Sahyadris, here given two examples. Second example, western Sahyadris, there were the humid climate, and because of this the leaching of the same basalt rock, there were the also basalt rocks, but there were the climate of this region is humid climate, and because of this the basalt rock leads to the formation of laterite soil in the western Sahyadris. And weathering of basalt in the Deccan Plateaus, there were the black soil occurs or form. Then third important factors is the biotic material is the so important for the formation of soil. Biotic material, the weathering of rock turn into the powdery material, but this powdery material is not soil. It turns such powdery material into soil. It is necessary that biotic material get mixed in it. The biotic material come from the decomposition and the remains the plant and animals in that region. The vegetable litters, roots of the plants, remains of the animals, etc. get deposited due to the water. That means third point is the or third factor is the necessary for the parent rocks, the biotic material. In the formation of weathering rocks, weathering of rocks, they rocks converted into powdery material, but this powdery material is a soil? No. At that time they turn such powdery material into soil. It is necessary to mix necessary that biotic material get mixed in it. म्हणजे त्याच्यामध्ये बायोटिक मटेरियल मिक्स होणं काय असतं, गरजेचं असतं. Biotic materials comes from the composition of remain the plants and animals. The biotic material comes from the plants and composition of the plants and animals. Here the vegetable litters, roots of the plants, remains animals, etc. get decomposed due to the water. Microorganism and certain other organism helps decompose the dead remains of organic material. That means they come from the decomposed dead organic material, and this biotic material produced get mixture of soil and called as humus. And the biotic material, that means which biotic material, the vegetable litter, root of the plants and animals, and they get decomposed due to water, and microorganisms, other organism helps compose the dead remains organic material, and this biotic material produced get mixed into the soil and get this is called as the humus. If the proportions of humus in the soil is greater, the soil become fertile. That means the proportion of humus, the quantity of humus in the soil is more, at that time the soil become fertile. म्हणजे ती soil कशी असते, fertile असते, agriculture साठी योग्य असते. The process of the decomposition by living organism takes place continuously. Nowadays, production of vermicompost is undertaken on a larger scale. Try to understand the process of producing vermicompost or compost. Production of compost needs to sufficient period of time, element like organic waste and water and heat. That means the process of decomposition by living organism takes place continuously. At that time, now day-to-day production of vermicompost undertaken a larger scale. That means the process of decomposition by living organism takes place continuously, and nowadays production of vermicompost is undertaken a larger scale. Try to understand the process of producing vermicompost or compost. Production of compost needs sufficient period and time, element like organic waste or water or heats. The next factors which is important for the soil formation, which is the time. Time is the important factors for the soil formation. Soil formation is a natural and slow flow process. That means the soil formation is the natural process and also very slow process. This takes place in the very slowly. It needs a very long period of time. The form 2.5 centimeter thick layer of topsoil takes 1000 years. That means this form 2.5 थिक लेयर तयार होण्यासाठी 1000 years लागतात. From you may understand the soil are invaluables. The soil are the invaluable in the region high rainfall, there higher temperature. The process of soil formation is faster. That means the region of high rainfalls, म्हणजे तिथं rainfalls high असतं त्या ह्याच्यामध्ये काय होतं आणि हायर टेम्परेचर. दिस प्रोसेस ऑफ सॉइल फॉर्मेशन इज द faster and comparatively in the region low temperature and low rainfall soil formation takes place more time. म्हणजेच काय टेम्परेचर आणि हाय रेनफॉल्स असेल त्या भागामध्ये सॉइल फॉर्मेशन कसं होतं, पटकन होतं. आणि लो टेम्परेचर आणि फॉर्मेशन जर कमी असेल, रेनफॉल्स कमी असेल तर तिथं काय होतं, सॉइल फॉर्मेशन पटकन होत नाही, म्हणजे स्लो असतं. Humans use the soil gifted by nature as a resource. It mainly used for agriculture purpose. That means soil is a natural resources and man which is useful this resource for the agricultural activity or agricultural agricultural purpose. For getting higher production, different type of chemical fertilizers, insecticides are used progressively. However, this leads to the degradation of soils. That means this is the soil is a natural resources man who is used for the agricultural purposes. Next, an important component of the living world and earth is a plant. For the production of growth of plants, soil is indispensable. They provide support to the plant. Vegetation is abundant in the region that have fertile soil. For example, equatorial region. However, in the areas where the soil are not fertile, vegetations in scanties. For example, desert, and where there is a shortage of soil, vegetation is not seen. For example, the polar areas. Through favorable climate of the availability of the abundant water and sunlight are necessary for the growth of plants. These alone are not sufficient. Fertile soils favor plant growth. That means an important component of living worlds on the earth is a plant. That means a plant is a very important component for the living worlds. Production and growth of plant is soil is indispensable. That means important. That means growth of plants, the soil is a important factor. They provide support to the plants. You know, the without supporting of the soil, the plants do not live lives. That means vegetation is abundant in a region that have fertile soil. That means the vegetation is abundant in the region. Abundance means sufficient. That means the fertile soil, the vegetation is abundant. For example, equatorial region. However, the areas where the soil are not fertile, that means there where the soil is not fertile, this region vegetation is scanty. That means there where vegetation is scanty means to less in desert, that means here given the example is desert, and where there is a shortage of soil vegetation is not seen, and there where the shortage of soil the vegetation is not seen in the polar area. Given the example here the polar area. Though favorable climate, availability of the abundant water, sunlight necessary for the growth of plant, these elements are not sufficient. Fertile soil favor is a plant's needs. That means the growth in plant growth, the climate, availability of abundant water and sunlight are necessary. But soil is very important for the growth of plants. When man realizes that showing the seeds in the soil leads the growth of plants or yield crops, he started using soil as a resource. That means at that time man understand the need of soil or importance of soil. The gradually he realized that the fertile soil along the river's bed give higher yields. Hence he settled in the valleys and started living here in a group. That means at that time man understand the fertile soil along the river bed. At that time the man who was settled the bed of the rivers, and the leads to the rise the ancient river valley civilization. For example the Indus civilization. Here given the one of the example of the civilization is the Indus civilization. For the growing of population, man started producing greater amount of the food crops. That means growing population needs the amount of more food crops. He realized that crop production and prosperity in agriculture mainly dependent on fertility of the soil. That means this production of crop is dependent on the fertile soil and optimum ability of the water. Hence the emerged competition among the peoples to discover fertile land and settle there. Later, for the getting riches harvest, he made efforts in increase the fertility of soil. In this process, use the different fertile become a practice which leads to record agricultural production. That means here they used discover the discover fertile lands and settled there. Later, getting riches harvest and made effort of increase the fertility of the soil. Food crops, fruit and flowers are producing according to type of soil. That means food crops, fruit and flowers which is dependent on the type of soil. Food crops like jawar and bajra are the produced in the regular soil in Maharashtra plateau. That means the Maharashtra plateau, the jawar and bajra are the produced in the Maharashtra plateau. Soil in Konkan, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka regions produce rice. That means the in the region of Konkan, Kerala and Tamil Nadu produced the rice. The Madhya Pradesh potato is cultivated, and the Madhya Pradesh famous for the potatoes. The local agriculture produce determine the step diet of the people, and the region where the soil are not arable needs to fulfill their food requirement through important. There were the that means which region there where the soil are not fertile at that time their fulfillment of their food requirement through import. For example, countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, etc. fulfill by importing food by China, India and USA. The region while soil are fertile can be self-reliant for as a food production is concerned. Hence human settlement get concentrated in such areas. Agro-based industries flourish in these areas at later date. For example, sugar factory developed in the sugarcane producing areas. That means the region where soil is fertile can be self-reliant for the food production. Here given the one of the example. Here the sugar factories developed in the sugarcane producing areas. Fruit processing industry developed in the fruit production areas.